First the big men, now the small men. But Roman Gonzalez proved he's still a giant in the sport. This is After the Bell, Mirror Fighting's boxing show in association with Betfair.
Hey is the WBA heavyweight champion of the world.
Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
The Mirror brings you After the Bell in association with Betfair.
Welcome to this week's After the Bell, and we start with the small men as Cal Yafai, who was our longest reigning world champion, beaten by Roman Gonzalez, beaten convincingly in 9 rounds. He was dropped twice before the fight was eventually stopped. George, I think fairly safe to say, I think anyway, Cal got his tactics wrong against Gonzalez. He was the bigger man on the night, but he didn't keep the fight at range. He fought Gonzalez's fight and really was never really in it, was he?
No, after it felt like after a few rounds, Gonzalez really got his measure and he started to cut those angles that Yafai just couldn't contend with. Obviously, he's a bigger puncher, an elite level fighter. He's one loss against, well, 2 losses, but against the same guy, amateur and pro. Phenomenal record. But yeah, he just had the beating of Cal Yafai, established his style on the fight straight away. Looked like the champion in there really, and it was pretty much one-way traffic until the 8th round when he hurt Yafai, and then the 9th when it was stopped. A big, huge shot. So yes, sad for Yafai. I think you look at the opposition he'd been up against going into a Gonzalez fight. You know, the caliber opponent that he was up against. I'm not saying it was his fault or anything, but they weren't on that level. So that's difficult for a fighter to readdress, make that jump up in levels as well. Boxing away from home again. I think he was a month away from home that he had to sort of acclimatise to the States. So it's all a big process for him. But hopefully, he has a little rest now, maybe some recovery, and we see him on the way back.
I think I'm right in saying, Declan, that actually Yafai was the favourite going into the fight. Was that a case more of people underestimating Gonzalez, thinking he'd had those 2 defeats, he'd had some time out of the ring? We know his trainer died as well. It was more a case of underestimating him, or maybe a bit of both, underestimating him and actually overestimating Cal Yafai.
Yeah, never mind underestimating. I think people had basically written him off, Gonzalez, because those 2 back-to-back defeats. Obviously, the second one was pretty emphatic, and people had just written him off. He was obviously such a great fighter for so long. He didn't really come up in that debate about fighter of the decade. He has now. People remembered what he did. He was number 1 for a while, and he lost twice. The 2 defeats were basically because he's kind of too small for that weight. So people just assumed, well, Yafai's undefeated and Gonzalez is only older now than he was when he lost, so it's going to be, a good night for Yafai. It's the perfect time to get him. But actually, he's got plenty left in the tank. Can obviously still punch. And if you get your tactics wrong, which is basically what seemed to happen, like I was expecting him to go in there and just make it a stinker, make it as boring as possible, and try and nick it, or at least try and catch up with him late on, but just make it boring, because otherwise you're in trouble. Because how many amazing wars we've seen Gonzalez be in and then win, end up stopping the guy. I remember the one in Japan that time. That's what he does. So I don't know if he could do it again. Yafai might go in there and have a different game plan, maybe try something else, but maybe it's just when you're in there with someone so brilliant that you can't really choose to impose yourself. You can't do what you want to do. He makes you do things you perhaps aren't comfortable with. It's great to have him back, to be honest. It was a shame when he felt like he was missing. People forgot about him. People wrote him off. Great to have him back. I see the odds for the Estrada rematch, which is long overdue, but I still love to see it.
There's been a lot of talk in the last sort of 2 weeks after Wilder Fury. We can't write off Wilder after 1 defeat, which is true. You can't, but you have to be able to sort of revise your opinion on fighters, right, based on whether they win or lose, how they perform. And I think the same is for Yafai. Sure, it's his first defeat, but as we said, Gonzalez was so far above anyone he'd ever fought before. So it's okay to say there are different levels of even world champion, right? So it's okay to say Cal Yafai is he world class?
Well, yeah, no, he definitely is to be a world champion. He didn't look. I don't think he looked faded or anything like that. I think maybe he definitely got his tactics wrong. Maybe he might have even underestimated Gonzalez. And Gonzalez is obviously a class fighter. And he hung in there with him for 9 rounds when none of it was really going his way. Doesn't have a big dig, Yafai, which is Usually, sometimes fighter at the lighter weights get away with it because they're so busy and they're so rapid. But what Yafai's skill set is that he's a nice, neat, tidy boxer. You know, his hand speed's, is good, but it's not exceptional. It's not what necessarily wins in the fights. But when he's lacking that punch power as well, when you're in with someone like Gonzalez, you can't sit in the pocket and trade with someone because you just can't have a winning effect, because he's only got to get 1 or 2 shots slip through the guard to the body. They're going to accumulate as the rounds go on. But I still think he's definitely world class, Not sure how long it'll be before he challenges for a world title again. What his mindset is, what his plans are, whether he wants to have a little break from boxing or not. But definitely a world class fighter.
I'd agree, and also when you really think about professional boxing, it's about making as much money as possible, taking as little punishment as possible, getting out when you still can, and sort of winning as many belts or as many accolades, add into that legacy as much as possible. When you can do all of that in one, it doesn't really pay, to be honest, to be having wars and being in tough fights. And if you can get managed in a particular way, perfect. It just so happened that he's come up against someone brilliant. I'm not sure that's about the level or the way he's been managed. It's just when you get to a certain point, a position as a world champion in a division like that, which is one of the best in the sport, you're going to end up getting someone really good, and then it's just sink or swim time. It's not like he's avoided anyone, and he hasn't been steered away from anyone necessarily. It's just that the cookie hasn't really crumbled for him in that way, because you look at some of the names like Estrada, and we've spoken about all of them. They've all sort of fought each other. Saw Rungvisai is another one. Khalid Yafai hasn't really been on the radar, even though he's had a world title. He finally got this big fight, and it looked like good timing for him, and it just hasn't come off for him. I think he'll be back. I think he'll challenge for another world title at some point. It's whether he wins it. Now they're in the hands of these guys. They're talking about him going up as well. And then you look at that division where basically Inoue looks unbeatable. So if he stays at bantamweight, then he's got a problem. He's not going to win a world title there, but he could move up and then everything changes again.
Obviously, that's Wilder and Yafai both suffered their first career defeats in the last couple of weeks. I know your first defeat was controversial, let's say, so you can maybe that was a bit different, but what is it like to lose for the first time? Because presumably you feel invincible going into no matter who's in the corner.
It's not very good. It's the first one for me was a bit of a strange one because I was in a position where I couldn't even really admit that it was a defeat. I had to push on and try and just to get a rematch, to treat it and as if it wasn't a defeat. But losing again to Froch was conclusive, and I suppose everyone might deal with it differently. It's hard to, with hindsight, you think you might be able to work out exactly how you're thinking and feeling, but you don't really know. You don't really know. It definitely didn't have a good effect. Some fighters might be like, right, that's it, I need a break, because they might be at a certain age, a certain time in their life, they might want to spend more time with their family, or they might be chasing it, going, no, I need to get back to the top. That was how I felt at that stage. First loss, public, it felt like humiliation, so, and I wanted to be a world champion, so I had to just, throw myself back in there. The two guys, you mentioned Wilder and Yafai, were world champions, so they've already knew what that felt like. So I think everyone different. Both them fighters got beat quite conclusively. So will they? Wilder's already triggered his rematch clause, so he wants to get back in there, and he's got to make adjustments. So I don't know how he's thinking and feeling, but it's interesting. It'd be a great study. I don't know if someone has studied, someone with a degree, and throw their 2 cents in and see what they think.
We always hear that adage about, when you lose, it's about the people who are in the dressing room when you lose and when you win. And I remember speaking to Kell Brook about it when he lost to Errol Spence in particular. People stopped messaging him. His phone wasn't going off. No one was interested anymore. It always struck me that you had a really strong support network, close family and friends. You didn't really have many hangers on. How did you find that? Was it a case of the phone started slowing down and stuff started drying up, or did you notice it in that way?
Yeah, no, I mean, I sort of, I cut myself off from a. I never really accumulated too many people like that as it went on, and then in the end, I had a lot of people come in and out of your team as such, And then by the end, I realised, the best way to equate was that all these people who were part of my team wanted me to win, like before they wanted themselves to win. You know.
So if it's the other way around, they've got to go.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I expect. When the fighter wins, you all win. You know that's great, but if someone in the team's making decisions for their own benefit ahead of yours, it can be dangerous. So sometimes that happens, and you can't help it. But I don't know, everyone. Again, maybe everyone's different. You never really want that. You never want to be fighting for that, I suppose. You know, fighting for that sort of love, because it won't be there forever. You see lots of fighters who you imagine just enjoy the public praise too much because it won't be there forever. I mean, I say it all the time. People come up to me and say, "Oh, I was there at the first Froch fight. I booed you on the way in and I cheered you on the way out." I'm like, wow.
Cheers, mate.
Did you cheer me or boo me at the next one?
Yeah.
Like, well, how long did that last? You changed your mind pretty quickly there. So, you know, people do change their mind real quick, and it's difficult. It is real difficult. But if you can detach yourself from that, the good and the bad, then you'll be much healthier and happier.
Yafai's obviously he's gonna land this week. I guess he'll get back today or tomorrow, whatever. No belt. You know, now he's been beaten, been knocked out, and he would have felt invincible. Like civilians like us, we never have to deal with anything like that in our lives. How long does that actually take to sort of get over? Are we talking? I've heard boxers talk about just a couple of weeks, and then they're back on the horse to get back straight in the gym. But how long is that sort of hangover actually? You know, trying to deal with that sort of defeat.
Yeah, I mean it's tough, man. I think I dealt. Mine lasted years.
Really?
Yeah, until I beat Chudinov, and I was like, right, finally. Where I am where I thought I would have been 3-4 years ago. You know. I didn't know that was there. I didn't know that feeling was there until I beat Chudinov like that, and then it was like, oh right,
It's gone.
It's gone. Thank God I can move on with my life now. Because I thought I was over it here and I thought I was over it there, but you know, there's loads of incremental stages, and you know, some fighters were back in the gym. You know, I was planning a comeback after losing at Wembley. I was planning a comeback within a week. You know, and within 4 months, I went from fighting at Wembley Stadium for a world title to fighting Wembley Arena for world title eliminator, and it was a massive fall from grace. You know, it was 80,000 people in a stadium to struggling to sell at 8,000 at an arena. So again, people ain't texting me for tickets, but I know my friend Jason, who sells my tickets, you know, he'll send out a message at start, tickets are in, who wants them, and then people were buying, you know, going crazy for the Froch tickets, and then me against Rabras for a European title, his phone wasn't lighting up so much, you know. So, but that's the sport. That's how it is, you know. That's how boxing's become. There's very few standalone, one-sided pay-per-view fighters. You know, I boxed on Floyd Mayweather's last fight, or at least at the time his last fight, Andre Berto. You know, after him fighting Pacquiao, which was supposed to be the biggest fight ever. And we couldn't give the tickets away. You know, no one was interested. Mayweather is supposed to be an absolute superstar. This is the last time you might see him fight, and no one wanted to come. So because the fight itself didn't have that excitement. So that's the sport. That's the way it is. That's why we get so excited about particular fights. I think it'll always be that way.
As Dex said, Estrada Gonzalez looks set to be next at some point. Unification clash. Estrada, the 8-15 favourite with Betfair. Gonzalez 6-4. The main event on Saturday night was at welterweight to Mikey Garcia, his second fight at 147. He lost to Errol Spence last year. This time, victorious on points against Jessie Vargas. I think the answer to this is obvious, but it looks like Mikey Garcia and welterweight are here to stay.
Yeah, and it's exciting. It's good. There's loads of great fights to be made now, isn't there? Really, and I think it was a bit crazy making that jump up to. It would have been was it light middle that he jumped up to?
The Spence fight,
and box Spence, yeah.
So that was at welter.
Welter, sorry,
yeah.
and you know, it was too much. because at lightweight he was, phenomenal. So I think like welterweight, where he's at now, some great fights have been made.
It's a funny one because I remember being in Vegas. I can't remember who it was, but it was someone, it was off the record chat, and he wasn't trying to tell a lie or anything. He said that Mikey Garcia genuinely asked about fighting Canelo. He was like, that's actually who I want to fight. So it gives you a sort of idea of what he's thinking. He obviously doesn't really think normally like a normal person, certainly not like a manager. But he seems to be happy at welterweight. I wonder if, the Pacquiao fight, which we think is going to be next, obviously Pacquiao not a natural welterweight either, so that makes a lot of sense. There's some guys there like Spence. He's just not going to trouble him because even though he's got good power at lightweight, and I always wondered whether actually 10 stone would be his best division, even with the people who are there now. He sort of skipped that, and there's some great fights there, but welterweight, traditionally such a glamour division, there's money to be made there. Obviously, against Pacquiao and Saudi, there's all sorts of money to be made there. I thought it was a good performance, but it's just clear when he's in there that he's going to be smaller than people. It doesn't seem to bother him. The problem with him that we've had is that I think that was his second fight in like 2 years, one of which was the Spence fight, which never really got going. So he's in like the prime of his career. We already lost a big chunk of his career anyway. He's in the prime of his career now, and it's just not got going. So hopefully this is the start of it. If he'd lost here, it would have been a bit of a problem. Obviously, Jessie Vargas, good opponent and a former world champion and all that sort of stuff, but it would have just been like, right, you can't be a welterweight anymore. But he can, and there's some fights there. The Pacquiao fight intrigues me, I think, because of Pacquiao's age and all that sort of stuff. So if he beats him, it's a great legacy fight and there's all sorts of money for him. So that seems to be what all sort of roads are leading to.
As Dick said, Eddie Hearn wants to make Garcia Pacquiao for July 11th in Saudi Arabia, your new favourite boxing venue.
That'd be nice weather.
Well, certainly will. Obviously, that Pacquiao's not fought since last summer, George, but he looked good against Thurman, knocked him down. Didn't look too old in boxing terms, but it is another year, isn't it?
Yeah.
Another year on top of that, which maybe the odds are pretty close. Pacquiao 5-6, Garcia 10-11 with Betfair. Is this probably a good time? Maybe a good time for Garcia to get Pacquiao?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he has like been defying the odds. Pacquiao recently, obviously, in terms of his age, he's into his 40s now, isn't he? And but look, as good as you'd better than you'd expect. Maybe not as quite as good as ever, but definitely a force in the division. Another year on, maybe, but who knows? He always, I imagine, always keeps himself in great shape. As long as he's switched on and he's up for it, then. I don't know. I think it's hard to go against him, to be honest. So, 5-6. I know they're both evenly matched. So I'd probably favour Pacquiao in a Garcia fight.
Yeah, you'd have to, because based on what he did against Thurman, obviously a much bigger guy, knocked him down. It was good. It was a great performance. Actually, a lot of people thought that, a bit like Yafai and Gonzalez. A lot of people had thought, right, we're writing off Pacquiao here because Thurman's a bigger guy. It's his turn. That era's over, but. I think Garcia, because Pacquiao's so used to fighting bigger guys now, that he might actually think, well, happy days, I've got someone a bit more evenly matched here physically. I just think he's got that style that could trouble Garcia, who obviously much prefers it if someone's in front of him and he can hit him really hard. So he might not get that opportunity against Pacquiao. It depends which one we see, because he's been, throughout his career, he's changed between that sort of hummingbird in and out style and the southpaw style. Sometimes, I think against Matisse, for instance, he really held his feet and just sort of wanted to go for the knockout. So depends which one turns up. I think that'll depend on how his camp goes and whatever else. But assuming he's got 80-90% left in the tank, I think that price 6-5 on is very tempting indeed. Interesting, the draw's only 16-1. Probably steer clear of that. That'll probably come back to haunt me.
One to look ahead to in the coming weeks. Next up, we'll be back in Manchester, where Scott Quigg takes on Jono Carroll this weekend. 4 years after his defeat by Carl Frampton, boxing's forgotten man in many ways, Scott Quigg is back this weekend against Jono Carroll, headlining in Manchester. It has been a tough time for Quigg. Obviously, that fight was it was promoted and hyped up so much 4 years ago, ended up being not quite as good as we'd hoped. Frampton gone onwards since then. Quigg went to Freddie Roach, now he's back with Joe Gallagher. A real crossroads fight, really, for both guys.
Yeah. I mean, a good trade fight. A good way to describe it. Good trade fight. Quigg boxed at a higher level. Probably a more talented fighter, but we're not sure exactly what he's got left, how much he's got to offer, what he really wants out of boxing now. And Carroll he's entertaining in the build up, and I think it makes a real interesting fight. Especially for the Manchester crowd. So. Quigg, as you say, back on home soil. We couldn't work out when the last time was, but he's been in the States, definitely out there training at least. It's a real interesting one.
He obviously had that fight with Oscar Valdez, which a cracking fight, didn't end so well for Quigg, sort of set him back again.
Didn't end well for Valdez either, broke his jaw.
Well, that's also true. Yeah. But really, if he loses there, it's difficult to see where he goes after that.
Well, yeah, that's why it's a good one, and that's why it's crossroads, and that's hopefully what will bring out the best in Quigg, because he's had a strange few years, because obviously he went to America, he trained out there. We knew he loved the wild card anyway, because he would go there on holiday, but then when he made the big move over there, it sort of can be difficult. I remember speaking to Luke Campbell about it, and Jason Quigley, other people who have gone to LA to try and find their fortune. It's obviously a bizarre place anyway, let alone when you're a boxer, and you go over there as an English guy or Irish, as Quigley was, and you sort of start cracking jokes in the gym. No one gets you. No one gets it at all. You go and sit on your own in the evenings. It's a tough existence. You often will find yourself coming home when you're not in camp, obviously, and then you're living two lives, kinda. And for some people, it doesn't work. Didn't seem to work for Quigg. He's had a lot going on outside the ring as well. But what you know with him is he's gonna put 100% in. He's definitely gonna turn up on the night. He's so tough. He can punch. A fight like this, when everything's on the line for him, I think will bring out the best in him. And in Carroll, it's a perfect sort of foil for that, because, like George said, he's good in the build-up. He's a character. His record doesn't suggest he's a puncher at all. I think he's had like three stoppages or something. But weirdly, usually people rack up stoppages early in their career, and then it slows down the higher level they got. He never really got any stoppages at the start, and he's beginning to stop people now. So he's obviously got some pop. I think it's a distance fight, personally. That'll probably come back to haunt me as well. But it's the sort of fight, a proper trade fight, a 50-50 job with so much on the line. It's a good Saturday night fight night.
Quigg is the favourite, 8-13 with Betfair. Carroll 5-4, the draw 22-1. Carroll's someone who's really benefited from sort of matchroom fighters often fighting abroad, until he obviously fought Tevin Farmer abroad. But with the main guys, let's say, often going abroad, there is that opportunity for the lesser well-known guys to sort of fight in the UK and headline. I mean, if we'd said 3 years ago, look, Quigg, Frampton headlined the Manchester Arena.
Yeah, well, this is just about rights fees, isn't it? It's like the money that you can get from fighting on a normal Saturday night Sky show is just, compared to what you can get on DAZN, fourth down the bill or whatever it is, it just makes no sense anymore to just stay. It's sort of not your first choice now. Used to be that people were like, I'm just desperate to box on Sky. But actually now you've got other options. And that's why we've seen certain people, Callum Smith, people like that, see them on undercards in America more, because you'd rather get paid well in America and be on a show like that. But it does open the door for things like this. And the good thing about this one is that it's a proper fight. That it's a shame when you get people who come back and have an easy one, or, they're matched badly on a top of the bill Saturday night show, because that's not good. That's not good for the sport. That's not good for trying to get people involved in it. But when you get something like this on a Saturday, hopefully be blood and guts sort of job, 12 rounds of, of hell, which everyone likes to see, then it sort of brings people in again and go, oh yeah, I'll watch that. I'll watch boxing on Saturday. But you're right. This is all as a result of that money in America. Yeah.
Just touching on what Dick said, George, look at Yafai. He's obviously lost at the highest level. Instinct tells me he'll come back in maybe an 8-rounder against someone he shouldn't really be in with at this stage of his career. Is there any reason why he shouldn't fight someone, let's say, of the level he was fighting before Gonzalez next?
Can do. I think it depends on how he's feeling in the gym. Most fighters won't really want to take a step back. I mean, some will if they're starting to doubt themselves, or they just feel like they need a break or something. But you'd probably take a knock, coming back, and you'll probably end up underperforming because you're in at a lower level that you think is beneath you. talking about sending guys over to the States. Yafai obviously being so light and where there's so many good fighters in the States or big fights in the States, and it makes sense for him to maybe going over there. And even if he's on an 8-rounder at maybe lower level, it's still suited because they've got the opponents out there for him. But developing guys for Saturday fight nights, it's all down to ticket sales, and to build a real fan base, you've got to be here. In the build-up, on your way through, promoted correctly, to then get to the level where you're not always rolling the dice on a percentage of profits, and you're hoping to sell enough tickets to make it worth your while at a huge venue like Manchester Arena. You want to know that, this is a good fight, there's a big title on the line or whatnot, and we're gonna sell loads and loads of tickets, and we're all gonna make our money. But the safety is to go to the States, but and get, because their TV money's just so big. Like they don't care about ticket sales. I've totally not answered your question. Went off on a different rant that we were talking about before.
That's all right.
But go back to Yafai and fighting. If I was him, I wouldn't really want to. I'd want to be in an eliminator or something at the top end to stay motivated. At his age now, 30, 31, with his record, and you're talking about like maybe building his legacy now. At the tail end of his career, have a couple more big fights, really see how far he could and how much he can get out of the sport. Not necessarily always financial or more along the lines of accolades, and just say I was in there with this guy and I gave my best, and who won a big name or a bigger name on his record with a win next to it. So that would be what, if I was him, that would be my mindset.
When I mentioned a crossroads fight, and I think I remember when you fought Martin Murray, you both said, if I don't win this one, what's the point? I mean, you won and Martin Murray lost, and well, he's not officially retired, he kept going. When fighters say that, and I suspect Quigg may well say that this week, do you mean it, or is it just a way to sort of another way to get yourself up for it?
It's real difficult to actually, call it a day as such, pull the trigger on that. If you're usually when you're at a crossroads fights, you're not in your mind, you're not thinking this is the end of my career, because you want to win this and then move on to something else. Some fighters might have an exit strategy or just truly believe they've only got a few fights left in them. I was like that, once I fought Eddie Goodneck, I was like, right, I have to win a world title. Won a world title in the next fight. I was like, right, what do I do now? And then I had a tournament, which was 3 fights, 12 months, good money, a few more belts that I was promised along the way, and all right, win, lose or draw, that's me done. My wife laughs because after Eubank in the semis, I'm in the ambulance going, well, that's it then, that'll do. Shoulder hurts, I don't really know, we call that a day, won't make the final. And then she's like, yeah, I know you, all right, whatever, we'll see. You talk to me again in the morning. And then by the morning, I'm like, right, how are we going to get to this final? But I always knew that was it. But put that pressure on yourself for a crossroads fight. Like, for example, me and Martin Murray. I don't think Martin knew that, even though it was being billed as a 50-50, that he was sort of an underdog in that fight. I was naturally a bigger guy, sort of me on the comeback, and it was the purpose of that fight was to be a great trade fight on an undercard of an Anthony Joshua heavyweight world title pay-per-view show. So I'm pretty sure he knew if he loses, he wasn't going to call it a day, and he didn't. So crossroads is usually thrust upon you by promoters, managers, even journalists, and then you have to go, yeah, sure, crossroads fight.
I'd never say that.
No. So there we go. But I doubt either really have.
I suppose you don't know until you're back in the gym, do you? Like if you lose, how you feel actually the next morning, you wouldn't actually know now at this point until it happens.
Yeah, I mean, someone like Scott Quigg, former world champion, if he goes out and he just can't do it no more, then you think, is this really for me? Do I really want to hang on in there? What am I benefiting it from? But if you go out and you're feeling good, but you still lose for whatever reason, and you look good, and it was glimpses, and you can go away and take from that fight and make improvements, then even a loss, it'd be difficult to walk away from. You know.
Okay, that is Saturday. Next up, we'll take a look at what's been making the news in boxing this week. It may be 9 days since Tyson Fury's victory over Deontay Wilder, but the controversy, let's say, continues to rumble. A video released this week suggests that Tyson Fury's hand wasn't fully in his glove, and therefore when he was hooking mainly, his bare fist was connecting with Deontay Wilder. Now, we've looked into this in great detail, and it would appear to be the video actually from the first fight, not the second fight. But the question still remains, George. It does look, well, let's call it interesting.
Well, you can't dispute that the glove isn't on properly. They've froze it down frame by frame. His hand isn't in the glove properly. The video that I saw, the guy is now saying that that was done purposefully. He's hitting Wilder with like a bare fist, as you say, and that was having the effect. But then you realise the footage is from the first fight, so it's not like, if it was from the second fight, you're like, that's the difference that we had, was hitting him, and he seemed to be having more of an effect in the second fight than the first fight. I don't know whether it was. First, we don't know whether it was purposeful or not. Whether the glove had just slipped down. Fury, he has that kind of style. It's definitely in the first fight where they are flicky sort of shots. It is bizarre. His hand definitely is not in the glove properly. Yeah, I don't know any other. I know Klitschko used to wear Paffin gloves, but I don't think there's any other world champions out there that do wear Paffin. Tyson wasn't happy about wearing Paffins when he boxed Klitschko, but now he does wear them. So whether they're making different type of gloves for him than he had to wear for that challenge, but I think it's really interesting.
It is interesting.
Very interesting. I mean,
it's been sort of ridiculed a bit, isn't it? That video.
Yeah, well, it will do. I mean, he's come out directly after and blaming his costume as well, which is valid, but it's totally your fault. Yeah. So don't bring it up. Just you can let someone else release it and say, well, I made a mistake there, but I'm not going to blame that. But he said, actually, no, you have totally blamed that. But the frame by frame, his hand is not in the glove. I mean, for me, it wouldn't be of a benefit because, you're much more likely to do damage to your hands and your wrist than anything else. But
surely, though, when you're a 19-stone man, 20-stone, getting off a 20-stone man, the gloves, like you say, really are there to protect your hands. Surely, having it on the laces is not going to do that much more damage than if your hand... It's not a big glove in a fight. You're a massive man. Surely it won't make that much difference. The only difference, you're going to break your hand over 12 rounds.
Yeah. I mean, it is...
Or is there a benefit to it?
I mean, if you imagine you got the glove on properly, when you've got it on and you're in the dressing room, if you got nice gloves, you feel $1 million. But if you took the padding out of that glove and it was just leather, you could do that much more damage. If your hand is secured strong with under tape and bandage, then I'm just imagining some of the big punches out there. If they were hitting you with nothing in the glove, it would make a massive difference. But that idea of not having the gloves on, obviously, and having the edge just dangling almost, nothing there, and trying to get your fist through a lace it.
Because it looks like he's punching. Rather than landing with his knuckles, he's sort of landing with the front of his hand. So surely the idea of not having, your hand padded is negated by the fact he's not actually punching correctly then. So I don't see the benefit in it, but it seems to be something in the video. There's clearly something going on. Yeah,
but if you don't punch properly to start with, because Tyson, he does it better in his latest fight, but he doesn't actually sit on his shots and throw. He doesn't throw a right hand like Deontay Wilder does. They are arm shots, and sometimes they are palm facing, and have that sort of that slap effect. Nine times out of 10, fighters end up doing that because they have sore hands, and they just, you know, Calzaghe being probably the most famous, who had hand trouble and ended up sort of slapping at times. So it's really interesting. I don't know exactly what to make of it.
I mean, the problem is, though, just before you go on, Martin, that was from the first fight. Did it happen in the second fight? We need this guy to have a little look. I've had a look back at the fight, and I can't really see, because, like you say, the technique is sort of, he has his own sort of technique anyway. Fury, the way he jabs and stuff like that. Surely someone can't be getting in the ring in that first fight with gloves like halfway on. Surely someone's having a look at him and going, "Hold on a sec, that's not right."
Yeah, I mean,
that's the main concern here.
You'll have an official with you. Definitely in the UK, you'll have a British Border Control official with you who checks the bandages. You'll have you have a member of the opponent's team in the dressing room as well, who will come and inspect the bandages going on, and then can be there present to watch the gloves going on. A lot of the time, everyone's obsessed with the bandages, and they don't really care so much about the gloves. They think, "Oh, I've already looked at the gloves at the rules meeting. Everyone's going to put their gloves on," you know. I suppose it all depends on the glove as well. Most boxing gloves, I mean, the gloves that I used to wear, you couldn't do what they're asking you to do, because they're so, you know, they're custom made. They fit a hand, they fit a fist. Like, there's not enough room in there to sort of make a fist in the wrist sort of area. I don't know. It seems like if they're poor gloves, and I don't want the stock shares of Paffin to fall at the sight of this video, but if the gloves aren't made particularly that well, then maybe they were just a bit loose, a bit big, and they started off, you know, correctly, but as the fight's gone on, his hand has slipped down. I don't know. It is fascinating, definitely.
Can we categorically say then that you never had your hand in the laces so you could knock people out easier?
Nah. I would. Yeah, it would not work for me in the slightest. No, definitely not. I mean, as you say, you can't punch properly. No. You can't get your knuckle in, because you can't. The angle of where your hand would just be all wrong. In fact, you'd have, if you punch properly, you'd have more padding. There's more glove there. So it doesn't match physics that way.
It'd be really strange to throw straight shots, though, surely.
Yeah, because you've got this big pillow on you.
Throw your palm.
Yeah, it would be really difficult, because you've just got a lot of added weight, in the wrong position to try and throw straight shots. But in those video clips, his hand's not in the glove properly.
It comes after as well, that video. I don't know if you saw it, of one of his sparring partners before the first fight having a go at the padding. Did you see that? Yeah. Someone had a video and some gloves which allegedly Fury had worn for sparring, and there was no padding in them. It's obviously because he had them for years, and he was like, "But these are my gloves." It's obviously because they bought him some new gloves for sparring, and he's having a go at them. But we are getting these little videos now, and it's interesting. I don't know what Tyson you don't even care, you don't even listen to it, but it's all good chatting it around fights like this.
Absolutely, it's amazing what people can find on the internet.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We'll leave that there. On the same note, the rematch clause has now been triggered. It looks like July.
It could be bare knuckle.
Maybe.
Yeah, apparently.
I'd watch.
Yeah.
It'd be more interesting. It looks like July 18th back at the MGM Grand, which I think is the last date in the contract that it could happen. George, you said last week that you thought Wilder should take some time out. He's obviously not listened to you. Yeah. Sorry. But the fight's happening. How now? What does he do now? We've got 4 months?
Yeah.
What does he do now to basically right that wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I understand why he's definitely triggered a rematch, why he wants to become world champion again. Business-wise, he had to make that decision, because he could get frozen out if he doesn't take that right that he's got. I suppose that with watching the first fight, it was pretty conclusive from the start that it wasn't going right for him. So he needs to make some massive changes, and that's all he can really look at this point. definitely drop the costume out that we mentioned last week, and
maybe slide the gloves up a little bit.
Yeah, maybe wear some paffins for the next one. I thought he was probably a bit too heavy. I can see how he probably thought, right, I'll put on some weight, and then when I hit him, he'll stay down this time. But having a bigger rig to sort of maneuver around the ring would have been different and would have been more difficult. But it's definitely back to the drawing board for him. Definitely back to the drawing board, and he will have to make some massive changes. Who knows what the next Fury will be? Because he's so big and because he can carry the weight well. You know, there's so much talk about Fury being in a pound for pound listing right now, but when you think he was actually 30 pounds heavier than Deontay Wilder, so that kind of was a pound for pound fight, you know. And I think Wilder needs to be lighter, so it's gonna be a difficult one for him, and he definitely needs to make some changes. He needs to be sharper and figure out how he can control and navigate the ring better, and preferably dictate the pace. Because you can't just go out there and hope to blow Fury away. That's not good enough, is it really?
Any advice from Mr. Wilder?
Lose a costume.
Yeah.
Get some paffins. But then I think the main problem, it's funny because we all sort of picked Wilder to win. And now I'm pretty sure we'd all pick Fury to win. It just seems that he's sort of cracked it now, Fury, and that, like you say, it's back to the drawing board. It's not that, 4 months away or something, July? Yeah. What we saw and what we all sort of went, oh, okay, after 2 rounds, actually Wilder can't box going backwards. He's never had to. And no one's ever walked towards him because then they get chinned. So how are you going to learn to box going backwards to, you know, the level that Tyson Fury is going to make you? I don't think that he can win the fight by any other way of a puncher's chance. And then, you know, that's completely different to the second fight. But he is this extreme puncher and he could still land. And so you can never write him off in any fight. But I think you're going to have a little bit of a hard time selling it. It's going to be easier to sell than Wilder against someone else from the top 10 or the top 15. So I can see why he's going for it. And hopefully it just means more selfie videos that he's going to do, because that was brilliant. I could watch them all day. So hopefully we get one of them a day. Maybe that's what he needs to do. But I just can't see. If Fury turns up like that and with those tactics, I don't really see how he loses apart from when he gets caught. But we even saw when Wilder was fresh out of his costume, but he landed a couple when his power should be at its best in the first couple of rounds. He did land and it made a big mark on Fury, but he didn't go over this time. So he can take him. We saw him get up twice in the first fight. So even the puncher chance is sort of going like this a little bit, but people are going to tune in and see just in case, but I would assume it's going to be the same. It's going to be, surely it's going to be the same in this quick turnaround. It's not like Joshua against Ruiz where the tactics can be like switched around like that. This is what he's going to do. I can't really see how he's going to try and outbox Fury. He's going to try and land on him again, which is what he did in the second fight, and it didn't work. So I don't know. I'm interested to see the odds. We haven't got them yet, but
Fury definitely odds-on favourite.
Big favourite, yeah.
As much as 1 to 2.
Yeah.
You mentioned that selfie video. I mean, I know Wilder's quite eccentric most of the time, but
do you know what? It's a little bit not concerned. I'm not concerned for him.
No, I know what you mean.
I'm not concerned for him, but it's a bit like, again, you know, he's not wired the same as most people anyway, because look at him, you know, that's what he believes, you know, he's anointed by God and all this sort of stuff. He's not going to take that defeat kindly, but yeah, it's a little bit kind of, okay, like someone needs to be keeping an eye on him a little bit, because
3 months is not a long time. He says he's going to go to Africa, I think, till the end of this month. That leaves him.
It worked for Joshua.
True, but it only leaves him April, May, June.
Yeah.
3 months, which is basically a normal training camp, right? 12 weeks. And I think George is right. He had to take the rematch. You're talking $30-40 million again.
Well, you had to make out you wanted to take it anyway, just so you got your payoff if they went for the undisputed fight. So you can see why they'd all have to. He's not going to go like we said. Yafai's not going to have an 8-rounder, is he? I think it makes sense, but I don't know. The video was interesting. Did you ever do any of them?
I
don't remember.
Maybe I don't remember putting any out.
Yeah.
So Wilder Fury 3 means no Joshua Fury for now, and Joshua Kubrat Pulev has now been confirmed for June 20th. Tottenham Hotspur Tottenham Hotspur Stadium looks set to be the venue for that one. Joshua is 8-1 on with Betfair. Pulev 5-1. Of course, this fight was supposed to happen 3 years ago before Pulev was injured. Carlos Takam stepped in. Listen, it's obviously not the fight that we all wanted, but it was the fight we expected. Is there a chance for Pulev here?
Bob Arum really fancy. I know he would because he's a promoter, but genuinely does apparently, and not just in the media huddles. Genuinely thinks it, but I think people underestimated Joshua anyway. A lot of people in boxing always said, well, he's not that good, he's big bodybuilder, all that sort of stuff. Klitschko called him the CrossFit champion. And then that got even worse when he lost to Ruiz. But I think I remember going to the first press conference when they first announced Pulev Joshua, which was going to be in Cardiff, and then Takam. And I remember going to Cardiff Stadium and we spoke to Pulev. He's not a big colossal man. I'm not sure. It's a bit like Joseph Parker. I'm not sure he's got I just don't see how he can trouble Joshua. I said the same about Ruiz, though, to be fair. So who knows? But I think those odds are just about right. You would certainly have expected Joshua to walk through Pulev back then. There are obviously a few more little question marks. Interesting what he does tactics-wise. I would assume he's not going to try and outbox him on the back foot, surely. But who knows? It's a good fight for Joshua. It's good to finally get that mandatory out of the way and then look ahead to the big one. And at Tottenham opens a door there. That stadium's amazing, one of the best stadiums I've ever been to. It's local to him. I think it will do good business. Everyone's going to make a lot of money. But, I mean, if Pulev ruins that Joshua Fury fight for everyone, it's just going to be a nightmare. Isn't it?
Do you not think Pulev Fury will be just as big now?
I mean, it will be Joshua's first fight in the UK since, 2018. But, it is... I think we talked before that actually the only benefit of Joshua fighting in the UK is for the number of fans who can go and watch it, right?
Yeah, it's not that many in the scheme of things.
No, but it is good to be able to see someone who is, a poster boy for boxing and even sport in this country. It's good that 70, 80,000, whatever it is, can go and watch them, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think that's what the boxing fans really remember, is being there, telling people who was there. They're associating themselves with friends that have been there. Sure, you watch it on telly, but it's great to have heavyweight world champion fighting, in the capital, in a big stadium fight, because to keep boxing momentum going here in the UK, we do need stadium fights here in the UK. We don't want to see it being. We don't want to see too many shows sort of sold off abroad. Obviously, if there's a huge fight, they can go to the States and be exciting and be an opportunity for British fans to go out there. Great, but otherwise, we don't really want. I don't want to see too many Saudi Arabias. To be honest,
we hear a lot, and we have heard a lot in the last 9 days, whatever, that all the 4 heavyweight belts are in Britain. But the fact is, Joshua hasn't fought it since, like you say, 2017? Which fight was that? Povetkin or something?
18.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So his last couple of fights have been there. Fury hasn't boxed here he's been in America for however long. So actually, the 2 guys who have got him actually haven't been here for ages. So it'd be good to get one of them back. Time frame wise, it looks like if it were to happen, Joshua wins and Fury wins and they fight each other, it would be in December. So unless they're going to do it in Cardiff, which they're not, then that's going to go abroad. So it's good to get Joshua back in London, in Tottenham. He's from down the road. It's good to have him back. Hopefully that's a little bit of a boost, because it's not the same when they're away. You do get detached from them. I would assume that Joshua Fury, if it happens, will be in Saudi because of the money, but it would do mad numbers on pay-per-view, but it's just a shame, a bit deflating, and it's not at Wembley. Look at you against Carl. Just like what it does to the country is unbelievable. I'm just not sure it does the same when it's not here.
No. You couldn't be bothered coming in last week.
Yeah,
so
jet-lagged.
We didn't get your view. Fury Joshua, as you say, the timing, to be fair, although we want it now, at least the 2 fights are going to happen around about the same time.
Yeah.
And then there's a good 5 months potentially then to sort of let it marinate, let them recover and into it. So actually, fingers crossed, it looks good for end of the year. If it does happen, who wins and how?
I can't see, and this will probably come back to me as well, I can't see 100% Tyson Fury. I can't see how he loses. I can't, I don't see him getting stopped by Joshua. I just don't see that. And I think if it's a 12-round fight, I think Fury wins on points. Just because of the size of him, and obviously he's got a good chin as well. I suppose that's still a little bit of a hangover from being there, watching that. It was one of the best performances I've ever seen. That performance against Wilder, the one last week, was one of the best I've seen in person. Where it's like, whoa, everything he did was right, and he was on it, and he did exactly what he said he was going to do. What a wait and see what Fury actually says about the Joshua fight, because what he seems to say about boxing in his own fights actually comes true, and I'll see what he says. He told us in the week, and I know you guys spoke about it, he told us in the week exactly what he was going to do against Wilder, and he did it. He told us before Klitschko was going to be his easiest fight he'd ever have, and he did it. So if he says the Joshua fight, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, I'm going to have to believe, I'm going to have to stop doubting it.
Yeah. No,
I just don't see it. I just can't see how he loses. And I think from a betting point of view, a lot of people are going to back Joshua because he's very popular. He has a lot of fans, obviously. People are going to back him because, maybe they don't see it in a certain way. That is going to open the door for a very, very good price on Fury. He might start the favourite, but it's going to be close. I think that's going to be a hell of a bet later on this year.
Although we did all predict Wilder, I will say you did say a few weeks ago just what you've said, that Fury does. When he talks about it, he gets it right. So I will give you.
But you get it right, but then you might get it right, but then you've got Wilder punching in the face really hard, like that's gonna, everything goes out the window. I just can't see Joshua landing a massive one on him. But that's, we get it wrong all the time.
Hopefully we've got 6 months, 1 month,
6 months to talk about. We talk about it every week.
Yeah, absolutely. We need the views. That is indeed all for this week. Join us again next week. We'll look back at Scott Quigg against Jono Carroll. And of course, what's coming up next. Please do like, subscribe, all of the usual. Watch us on YouTube. We're on Facebook and we're on Twitter. Thank you.